friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Today I'm going to share with you how I've been making my kefir lately for cold and flu season. Now I did mention this in a previous video and you can find that video right up here, but in that video I did not talk or show how, I think I explained how I did it, but I didn't show how I did it, and since then I've added a few modifications to it just to make it a little more fun and different variations that you can use that I wanted to show you. Alright, so the last kefir video I did, water kefir video, was the blueberry one. I think I did early this last summer, and you can also find that video right up here. And that was using whole blueberries and it was really good. And I did that a few times over the summer. However, I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I want to start by straining out my finished water kefir. So this is going to become my new batch of my cold and flu season kefir. The next thing I want to do is carefully add my kefir grains back into another jar. I got a clean jar here. And that's a lot of kefir grains. I just haven't bothered dividing them up. I've just been letting them keep growing. And then to this, I'm going to add about a quarter cup or so of sugar. Now the way I did it in the last video that I did showing how to make kefir is I actually added the sugar right to the kefir grains. And I hadn't had any problems. However, somebody informed me that the reason it's best through that video, and thank you for that by the way, that it's best to actually mix your sugar and water separately and then add to the kefir grains so that the sugar doesn't possibly burn the kefir grains. And I think there must be some accuracy to that, because I'm thinking I could have had a few more. I think I probably would have had a lot more kefir grains by now, but these are still active and lively and doing great. And to want to make sure I keep them that way, I figured I'd go ahead and follow that person's advice. So I'm going to mix my filtered rainwater with this sugar and let it dissolve. It doesn't really matter how much I start off with, just so long as I give it a chance to dissolve. And we'll go ahead and stir that up. This is the organic cane sugar, that's why the color. It still has some of the molasses in it and all that. Lots of minerals in there. And while I'm letting that dissolve, I'm going to go ahead and move on to this. Now, the first time I made it, I didn't add any sugar to it, as you know, like this. However, because I'm going to let it ferment, I'm letting it do another ferment, I like to add just a little bit more sugar, not much. That's probably about 2 tablespoons. And then I'm going to add about that much again of elderberries. About 2 tablespoons. You can put in as much as you want, but it really doesn't take much to turn it this color. This is a finished product I've got going right here. And I'm going to be sticking that in the refrigerator. Okay, so this is how I was doing it before. Of course, you'll want to mix your sugar in, let it dissolve. This is just the simple. You can start with just this, with just the berries, a little bit of sugar and your water. You can also top this off with more water. But one of the things I've been trying that I'm really liking, just to add a little bit more health boost and a little bit more flavor, is a couple of dried orange slices. I've always had the dried orange peels, as you've seen over here on my shelves with my teas. And I use these a lot in my teas, but what happened was we purchased a whole bunch of organic oranges and weren't eating them up fast enough, and I thought I gotta do something with these, so I started slicing them up and dehydrating them. And I'm really liking these even better for throwing in teas. I think I like these better like this, and even just eating them like this is pretty good than even eating a fresh orange. So sometimes it just depends on my mood, I suppose. But anyway, we'll throw a couple of these dried orange slices in here. Let's put another one. Let's put 4. Let's get a nice orangey flavor. And I just thought these turned out beautiful. I loved how they turned out, so I'll be doing a lot more of those. And these, and by the way, I do these this time of year. I don't use my electric dehydrator because we're not getting a lot of solar power, and I'll only run the electric dehydrator if we've got plenty of solar power. But these I've been doing on the wood stove or even next to the wood stove on the rack that Patrick built me. And if you haven't seen how he's done that, you can look for that video right up here. It's just a really great thing. He made the first one for me years ago, and I've used it over and over again for making jerky and all kinds of stuff on the wood stove. Another option that one could do is add an organic Ceylon cinnamon stick, and I will link to these below. I think I'll go ahead and add it to this batch just so I can try it and see what it tastes like, because I do really like orange cinnamon or orange clove, things like that. And these are all really great things for helping fighting off colds and flus. I mean, you're getting lots of high vitamin C content with the oranges and the elderberries, and then of course cinnamon, cloves, and any kind of real strong spicy things are typically good at helping to build the immune system. All right, I'm going to go ahead and add a little more water in here just to give me a little bit more, and then I am going to put a lid on. And this isn't a watertight lid, so I got to be careful. I'm going to go ahead and shake that about a bit. In 24 hours, this should be nice and bubbly, and then a very dark color like this one is right here. And let's see if this one, you can see how bubbly it is on top. But it's nice and bubbly, ready to go in the refrigerator. I still have another one I'm working on, so I keep making more of these to stay ahead because I'm really kind of addicted to this right now. Especially when I'm making a lot of videos and having to do a lot of talking. My throat tends to get real sore because I have nodules on my vocal cords, and then so I've got the elderberry to help soothe that, a nice cold fizzy drink, and it really has been helping that. And then marshmallow tea helps a lot too. Now another thing you can do once your batch is finished, like this one is you can add a little bit. I like to wait till after it's all done. You can add a little bit of your homemade vanilla to that just for a little more flavor boost, and it's really good. So, and even if you leave out the oranges, like I did a batch with just the elderberry and then added in the vanilla, and it gave it a really nice flavor. So for this one, it's going to be orange, vanilla, and elderberry. And then this one's going to be my orange, cinnamon, and elderberry. And then here is a glass of the batch I'm working on currently. Now personally, I just go ahead and leave the berries in there and just kind of chew on them. Some people might find that gross. They're really good actually, but if you find it kind of gross to have floating things in whatever it is you're drinking, you may want to consider filtering it out with your little mesh strainer. I'm going to set this aside, and in 24 hours it'll have the color of this, and it should be very bubbly and ready to go. So I'm going to set this over here. You can set it on top of your refrigerator. Most of this stuff like this that only takes a day to 3 days, I like to leave on the counter so I see it. Not like the vinegar where I put it on top of the refrigerator, because I do want to just kind of forget about that for a month. And if it goes longer, it's not a big deal, though I do write it on the counter. Now, for this, once your sugar is all dissolved, which is still working on it, you of course could heat your water up a little bit and it would be faster, but I don't recommend it because you want to make sure that when you put it back in there, it's not hot, because you don't want to kill your kefir grains, because these are cultures just like anything else. You get it too hot, it's going to kill it. Okay, so that's pretty well dissolved. Let's go ahead and pour that in there, and I will need to top it off with a little bit more water. Not a little bit, a lot more. And you can then, at this point, you can cover it with a cloth like I did in my last video. But I'm finding that just putting a lid on it, not super tight, and these ones, like I say, aren't really airtight anyway, so they do let some airflow. I just put that on and I leave this for 24 hours, and then by tomorrow at this time, it'll be very bubbly and ready for me to make another batch. Or once it's done, if like right now, I'll have quite a bit of batches ready to go, so I might give it a break for a couple days before I make any. So then what I'll do is once this is bubbly, I'll just, tomorrow at this time, I'll just then stick it in the refrigerator as is and just let it go kind of dormant for a while until I'm ready to use it again. And you can do that for, gosh, I don't really know how long. Maybe it will be good for a week. But you will want to check it periodically to make sure that it's not going to go you know, you want to keep everything alive in there, so periodically you may need to feed it a little bit, just like you would like your fermentation starter or your sourdough or anything else. And now I want to talk a little bit about your kefir grains and what they are. Kefir grains are very similar to the SCOBY you use to make kombucha. In fact, SCOBY stands for Symbiotic Culture of Bacteria and Yeast. So SCOBY is actually an acronym. And so your kefir grains are the same. Now, I believe it's a different type of bacteria, different strain than you would find in your kombucha SCOBY, but basically these are just like SCOBY grains. So instead of making this thick mat, they just keep making more grains, and they'll keep reproducing just like your kombucha SCOBY will. Now, personally, I don't make kombucha. I've made it before several different times in the past. It's just not really my thing. I'm not that crazy about it, and I don't like going through that much black tea, and I'm not really crazy about black tea anyway. But, and I know you can use green or oolong. None of those kind of teas am I crazy about, but I might get back into them now that I found out I'm growing the very bush that makes all of those teas. I'll get into that in another video. And when I do, I'll probably consider getting back into making kombucha. However, I'm letting you know that because I get a lot of people asking me about questions about kombucha and looking for videos, and I don't have any out simply because I just haven't made it in years, and I might someday, but I like the water kefir better myself than that. Now, I also have milk kefir, and for a while, years ago, I was more into the milk kefir than I was the water kefir, but partly the reason why was because the water kefir grains I got at that time they were never very active. I just don't think I got a good batch of kefir grains. They were dehydrated to begin with, and then I had to reactivate them, and they got a little bubbly, but they just never really made a good batch of water kefir like these ones here do that I got from Posy Mom through Amazon. And I'll link to these below if you've never tried making water kefir, so you can find those particular ones because I recommend them. I know they're good, and get just a good healthy batch. So anyway, the great thing about water kefir to me is that there's so many different things you can do with it. You can do a lot with milk kefir as well, like use it as a sour cream replacement, or it's really great in ranch dressing when you make your own homemade ranch dressing, and I do have a video of that too, and I'll go ahead and post that right up here if I remember. Don't let me forget, people. But anyway, you can add all kinds of flavors. You're not even in the picture. Look who came to visit. Okay. Anyway, you can make all kinds of different flavors with this and make it taste however you want, just like I did with the blueberry, using the whole fruit, or you can strain out the fruit so you just have a nice clean liquid with nothing in it. I tend to like a lot of pulp and a lot of good yummy stuff in it. So that's how I do that. And the difference between this and the fermentation starter I use to make my own natural soda, and I have a video on that too right up here, and if I remember, is that one is definitely more of a yeast based type thing with less bacteria, where this is going to have more bacteria. So if you're looking for something that's more gut friendly, I suggest this over the other, but I still love my homemade natural fermentation starter because it has so many uses on its own, like for making bread, and you can even make wine and stuff like that with it. And I might, even though I do not drink, I do like to use alcohol for making tinctures, and I'm thinking about getting back into wine making for the sake of making tinctures, though they obviously are not going to be 80 proof. I still think I could make a good tincture using my own homemade wine, and that would save me a lot of money in having to buy vodka and other 80 proof alcohols, and we'll give it a try and see how it works. But again, those are for future videos, and I'll get into that someday. But just so you know, there are differences and there are different uses, and I am really kind of pretty happy with both the kefir and with the fermentation starter for doing various different things. So just so you know, there is a little bit of difference in how it's going to react to you and your body. I do find that I feel a little bit better. I tend to react a little bit more to the yeast in the other, and so I have to be careful how much of that I drink, where this I can have more of and it doesn't affect me the same way. All right. Well, I hope you found this video useful, a little bit educational, and that it gave you some ideas, especially for a good, yummy kefir. And it is really good that you can give to your kids, to yourself, to whoever needs it this time of the year when the colds and flus are running around. It's something tasty, also a good preventative from catching all those bugs. All right, hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.